Hey guys, in this video I'm going to be going over rogue macros that you can use in PvP. All of the macros I talk about are going to be in the description below for you guys to check out and easily copy paste. But I wanted to start with first the macros that I use more than, the most important macros. So the single best macro, in my opinion, the one I use the most, is going to be just a simple sap macro to help you sap rogues out of stealth. And all it does is clear your current target the closest enemy, and use sap. And at the end, I just put in a line to go into stealth if I'm not already in stealth. And this makes it possible for you to just get saps off faster than the other rogue. You don't have to worry about clicking on them and sapping, and when you have a really small window to do so. And it's just going to make sure that your sap goes off as fast as possible as long as you keep spamming this macro. Now, a very similar macro is going to be the cheap shot macro. It does the exact same thing except for cheap shot, and you use this macro against druids that are in stealth because you can't sap them. And the reason why you wouldn't want to use this macro against rogues is obviously if they sap you while you cheap shot them, your cheap shot is going to wear off and you're going to be stuck there sapped and you're going to get opened on by the rogue. So even though this macro is good against druids, don't use it against rogues unless for whatever reason sap is not an option. So those are the first two macros that I use more than anything else. Up next, we have stealth macros. These are really simple, really helpful. All it does is casts your stealth ability and then enter stealth if you're not already in stealth. Now, the example case for this one is going to be, let's say you are gouging an enemy and you're trying to go for a re-stealth and a cheap shot out of the gouge. If you mash this macro, the second you drop combat, you'll enter stealth and cheap shot the enemy. And if you were to just try and press stealth and then try and wait for your toolbar to update to your stealth abilities and then press like a cheap shot on your stealth bar, it's just going to be so much slower, and you really are going to find yourself not getting the cheap shot off in time. So this is great. You can put this on anything. Sap, obviously cheap shot is the most important. You can do it with garrote, ambush. It's just really essential that when you were trying to get a re-stealth cheap shot that it happens as fast as possible, because even if you're half a second, quarter second too late, you might get hit and you're no longer going to be able to enter stealth. Up next, we have a really specific and niche macro, but it's really, really good when you use it in the right situation. And that is going to be the macro that allows you to cheap shot an enemy without hitting them. So it cheap shots the target, it clears the target, it targets the last target, and it also presses stealth. So for example, if you're mashing the ability, it's going to stealth as soon as possible and then use the cheap shot, clear the target, and target the last target. So what does this all mean? So let's say you were to sap a mage and you wanted to cheap shot them for combo points without breaking the sap itself. You would sap. You would use this macro, and it doesn't matter where you're facing, doesn't matter what direction you're going, no matter what, you will not hit them. And while you can reproduce this by just going 90 degrees, you don't need this macro. It will save you precious seconds of setting up, and it's really helpful if the enemy jumps in the air when you sap them. If they're in midair, they can be difficult to use the 90 degrees to get the cheap shot for combo points off. So highly, highly recommend this macro. At the very least, it will save you some precious time that could end up, being the difference between you getting the opener or not if your sap does break early. So you're always racing to try and set up your cheap shot combo points as fast as possible. So this is a really good macro for doing just that. Up next, we have Mouseover macros. Now, you can just have a Mouseover macro such that you just mouse over at the target and use kick, or mouse over and use gouge, or whatever you want to do. But what I like to do to consolidate keybinds is I actually put a mouse over in with my regular kick as well. So I actually don't have a regular kick bind. I only use this macro. So what this is actually going to do is it is going to kick at my mouse over. But if I don't have a mouse over target, it's going to kick my current target. Now, this is handy for those of you guys who want to cut down on the number of keybinds you have. But if you really want to make sure you don't ever inadvertently use an ability on the wrong target, you should have a separate keybind for your Mouseover and your current target. But I go ahead and use this for my kick, my blind. I even have it for sap as well as gouge. So every now and again, I'll accidentally hit the wrong target. But all in all, it's very helpful to just consolidate your keybinds and have your Mouseover and your regular use on the same key. So at the very least, you can just use a Mouseover, but these macros are really handy to make sure that you very quickly kick or gouge or blind your non-primary target to make sure that they don't get important abilities off. So really, really helpful macros. Up next, we have a, pretty simple preparation macro. All it does is use every single ability that doesn't have a global cooldown that is going to be removed by your preparation right before you use it. So if you have sprint, evasion, or vanish available and you press prep, it will use it for you. And there's really no risk in getting a free evasion or a free sprint right as you're prepping. And the vanish can't hurt either. Worst case scenario, you're fairy fired by a druid and it just does nothing. But this is a nice one to have to make sure that when you press your prep, it will use all available cooldowns. Now there is one downside to the ability. So I have the macro right here. So I'll press it and you can see that I was able to use preparation and my vanish, my evasion, and my sprint went off and none of them are on cooldown. So they all went off in the right order. The one con to this macro is if I were to, for example, press preparation again, like use the macro again when the preparation is not off cooldown, it would blow everything and I wouldn't get a prep off. So that's the one con, is if you are pressing preparation when it is not ready, you are going to run into trouble and waste all your cooldowns for nothing. So that's the only con, but it is nice to get all of your cooldowns off right before you use an ability. Now, you can also use that exact same macro and just put like vanish at the end. So if you wanted a hotkey specifically to prep vanish and you already were, for example, knew ahead of time your vanish was on cooldown and you wanted a macro that would prep vanish, you could tack the abilities on at the top as well, just in the same way. And you can add the enemies or the abilities below that you're using the prep to restore the cooldown of. So those are some examples of how you can try and get more value out of your unused spells right before you use your preparation. The last macro I'm going to talk about is a macro that allows you to choose different abilities based on whether or not you're in stealth. So with one keybind, I can use my backstab just like it would normally work. So for example, I have this bound and I can use backstab just like it was a normal backstab. I press it, backstab goes off just with one press the key. But then also, if I am out of combat, for example, and I press the button, it is going to stealth and use ambush. And you can even get like right up close to someone and get an immediate stealth and ambush off. And this is something that can be really helpful if you're not sure if you're going to drop combat in time to use your ambush or your backstab, and you just want to make sure that you get one of them off. So if I'm running up to a player and I just want to do a damaging ability and I want the potential to use ambush if I do drop combat in time, this macro allows you to do so. And it takes advantage of the no stealth and stealth options in the macros. So that's it for macros. Again, all of the macros are going to be in the description down below. And if you have any macros that you think I missed, please leave a comment and let me know what macros you guys are using as well. So thanks for watching and see you next time.